of various units in the institution, whether university or not university. After that one, we have maybe deputy to the chief executive, whether deputy vice chancellor or deputy provost, deputy rector or whatever. So these are the, but again, we can go further. We can say council members, they are all leadership positions. And in fact, proprietor, the visitor, whether private or government sector. So they are, but to make our discussion manageable, we rather focus on leadership between the departmental level and the chief executive level. So now, I have to point out one thing, that it depends on the institution that we are referring to. Wow. And hello, I hope is there the network?
No, we can hear you, Prof. Please go ahead.
Okay. Now, the first thing that people should do at early level, if they are keen in leadership roles, because this is not everybody is keen in leadership role, especially at the administrative level. So those that are keen, they have to be be watchful in choosing the academic institution they are going to work for. They should make sure that it is an institution where they will not be discriminated against and being assigned leadership responsibilities. At least if they are not given preferential treatment, they should not be discriminated against. And let me elaborate. If you are from Oyo and you go to Anambra State College of Education, you don't stand the same chance as people from Anambra State in aspiring to leadership position and getting it. This is a fact. Even federal institutions, if you are not from the catchment area, your chance is extremely limited. That is as far as government educational institution is concerned. Now, when it comes to private educational institution, the same thing is applicable. You can't be a Muslim and say you want to go to Ajay Crowther University and you aspire to be the vice chancellor. It's you are choosing a wrong institution to work. As far as opportunity for leadership is concerned. Or if you go to Crescent University and you are maybe a Christian university, it's a faith-based university. So things like that count very much. And in other words, don't go to where you don't have. Don't go to where you are disadvantaged ab initio. Your chance, your opportunity to become leaders, let me say it's dead on arrival. If I can put it like that. Now, so that is one. It's a general one. Two, early PhD academic attainment is very important, because whether you go to colleges of education or polytechnics, nowadays, there's people look down on those that do not have PhD. And if you have masters, of course, in principle, you can become a chief lecturer in a tertiary, a college of education or polytechnic. But to be assigned leadership, maybe grudgingly, if they don't see any other person, maybe you can get up to the position of dean. But before you can become the chief executive, your chance will be seriously limited, if not statutorily barred, because in some enabling law, they insist on having PhD. So that is as far as non-university tertiary education institutions are concerned. Concerning university education, universities, well, you obviously have to get PhD early enough, because you cannot get promotion I think by National University Commission rule, you can get promotion beyond lecturer 1 without PhD. So the earlier you have your PhD, the better your opportunity for early career advancement is. So that is another thing that has to be paid attention to. Third, maybe you can I can mention early exposure to lower level leadership positions and good records of performance while holding such positions, so as to facilitate elevations to next level leadership position. In other words, if the first, you are being tried, you are giving exam coordinator, and you perform wonderfully well, then your opportunity for headship of the department is enhanced. And again, if you have good record, maybe when they are appointing them either by election or directly by the vice chancellor, again, the opportunity will be enhanced. And then eventually to become deputy vice chancellor, become vice chancellor and so on. Or chief executive of other is a necessary condition that we should not just set aside. Now, maybe I should mention positive but proactive connections to endear one to those that are positioned to recommend and or appoint to such lower level leadership positions and elevations therefrom along the ladder. In other words, you should be in the good book of those that matter, those that can appoint you, and irrespective of performance, those that can recommend you for elevation along the ladder. So that is another way of positioning yourself for to rise smoothly along the leadership ladder. So this left to the individuals. If you are don't be in the wrong camp and so on, and be able to maneuver, even if your camp appears to be wrong, find a way of maneuvering your way from that. And then maybe finally, I'm very careful about the time. Finally, you have to be a positive extrovert so that people, including those in a position to make appointments to leadership positions, will know your potentials and what you will be up to if you are given the appointment. In other words, don't be an introvert. Don't let your light shine among those that matter so that they will know you. It's good to be I'm not saying that you should be, be boasting. Yes, I was able to do this as exam officer, but at least let people see what you are doing. Communicate it. Let them get it. Because this matters not only in academics, but elsewhere. Government position, even companies, let people know your worth. That's why I say be a positive extrovert. So these are some of the things that maybe I want to share. There are obviously a number of others, but I think those are the key ones.
Thank you very much, Prof. That's extremely useful. I'm sure that is useful to everyone on the call and to colleagues who would catch up on YouTube later. Now, as part of answering that question, you've given a very, very robust response, and it touches on some of the other questions, but I will go through those questions anyway, because in any case, it then gives us room to get some of your more very specific tips and hints regarding how to get some of the things that you are recommending done. Now, I am quite fascinated by the notion of positive extrovert that you mentioned. So how exactly might one do this in a practical sense? So it will mean many things to many different people. To me, one of the things that means is maintaining, very good visibility, either having a strong LinkedIn profile. Some will say that you need a personal website. Some will say when there are meetings, show up. when there are responsibilities to be given, volunteer, step up, and so on and so forth. Whereas other more modest people would prefer to just be quiet and say, my work will speak for me. So what are some of the practical ways to be positively extroverted?
Well, I think you have mentioned some of them, but that the first one you said, I mean, if you don't blow your trumpet, nobody will blow it for you. That's just the summary. I mean, how to do this, whether it's through online or through something, let people know your words. If you have ideas, suggest it when there's a group discussion, they know that you always contribute and so on and so forth. So, and when there are certain things that you have achieved, celebrate them, let people know. That's what I'm saying. Of course, that attracts enemies and so on, but it's still good that those people that want performer in positions will say, well, that I know that character, he can deliver.
All
So
right.
that's essentially what I have in mind.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Now, the next one is connected to that. You also mentioned, making sure that we maintain a relationship, good relationship with a couple of people who are in decisive positions.
Yes.
Now, I want to believe, Prof, that there's a thin line between doing it well and becoming a psychopath. Can you help us? Can you help us draw that line, sir? At what point do I know that I'm crossing that line?
Well, at times the demarcation may not be watertight, but one is negative, one is positive. Well, if you want to be in the good book of those that can't, don't run down your others, even your opponents. Don't run them down. Is that your own side that you should emphasize? I mean, in other words, but again, it has limits. But people those that often make it, they indulge in such things at least to some extent. I can remember when I was at the Oyo State College of, Alayande College of Education, where we were considering maybe appointing registrars, appointing something, acting provost and so on. When you see every time, Christmas, they send greetings to me. I mean, I know that, those that are interested, they send greetings, they send something. Well, that is still modest. I know their motive, but that's still modest. But by the time they are now running down others, or maybe they are now sending me material gifts, they are now crossing the red line. But just to say hello, so, maybe. But again, as I said, there's a thin line between psychophancy and what some may see as psychophancy, others may not see it like that. Because even greeting me, Christmas is coming or something, they are sending greeting and so on. Fine. So some will say, well, why sending him? I know some introverts will not bother. Even they want, despite the fact that they want a leadership position. And they bottle up, so to say. So at times you can express what you have in mind and let people
know. Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you. And I saw in the chat that Professor Konade was making a point. We will come back to that. I will give you the floor, just towards the end to also reflect on that, because I think it's something that is important. The idea of collective cheerleading. When one of us does well, everybody running around to elevate them, to support them, to promote them, to make some noise about it, because there is a sense in which positive noise making or positive extroversion, as you put it, Prof, it really does help the cause of our kinsmen. Now, I'd like to move on to something else, and this is something I've been looking forward to having you talk about. I mean, I wasn't expecting that I would moderate today, if not for the technical issue, but I wanted to ask this question anyway. Now, this question has two parts, Prof. What is the most positive experience that you have had career-wise in terms of, how you rose to leadership? And secondly, what is the worst experience?
I don't know maybe the experience. The experience is when you are making progress, you make enemies. Coping with detractors and so on is a nasty experience. But overcoming them is a joyful one when you now confront them and you overcome them. So I think that's, in other words, both are linked. When you are making progress, they want to drag you down. But when you succeed, when they don't succeed in dragging you down, it's a success, and this is something to celebrate. So both the setback and overcoming of the setback, they constitute both the positive experience and negative one. They are joined together. So it's what I've gone through. I mean, most of the time, those that you are maybe about to surpass or rise above, they will not be happy. They want to pull you down. But a number of times, you overcome their resistance. And then again, it's something that constitutes my positive experience. The negative one, the unpleasant one, the act of trying to bring me down. The positive one is frequent overcoming of their attempts.
Thank you very much, Prof. So I was going to follow up on that with well, you are a man of numbers. You said you are an economist. So my next two questions are numbers related. Supposing that I enter into a tertiary institution today, so let's say, the institution where you are governing board chairman, and I knew that you must have superintended over some key appointments and, promotions and so on. So supposing that I started today as an early career researcher, on average, how long might it take to attain the highest level of leadership possible? That's the first part of the numbers question. The second part is, if we had to rank some of the tips and insights that you have given regarding how one can plot one's career pathway to strategically rise to the top, which one would you say is a game changer, must definitely be done? So almost like a necessary and sufficient condition, if I may use that term.
Okay, so let me start with the first one, that if one start today in a tertiary educational institution, how long it may take. You said before one can rise to leadership position, I think that doesn't have a definite answer. If you say to rise to the peak of one's career technically, from technical perspective, there's a lay down rule. You can get promotion every 3 years. Good performance can occasionally reduce it to 2 years. Sterling performance. So that is from this one to this one to this one. So you count all the levels. So you can count them. But so if you mean the top or the Senate of the position, profession, technically, I would say in a university is professor. College of Education or Polytechnic is chief lecturer. Just count it from the time you start, from maybe assistant lecturer and so on, 3. We don't be the 2 optimistic by saying, well, if I'm able to skip 3, I can spend 2. Things may not work, but the realistic one, 3. Maybe one can count it. That is, but again, there's no hard and fast rule about that. If you cross, and I think probably I should have mentioned that, if you cross institutions, you can short-circuit this period. In principle, if they need you, definitely in another institution, if they need you seriously, you can even jump totally a particular position. You can jump, for instance, from senior lecturer, go to professorship, or from maybe lecturer 1, you can jump to maybe reader or something like that. Skip 1 if they need you badly. So that way, so by crossing from one institution to another, it gives an opportunity to reduce the number of years. So depending on the need or how you are needed in your new destination. So that is that. Then the second one, maybe if can you please repeat it so that I get you correctly? The second
yes,
one.
The second one is about
the game changer of all those things that I mentioned.
Yes, the most important.
The game changer of actually there is no particular necessary no particular one that is necessary and sufficient. But the one that is very close to it is this, I think the third one I mentioned, early exposure to lower level leadership positions and good records of performance while holding such positions. Maybe that one, your performance will speak for itself. But this academic position, there's a limit you can rise. That's why I say there's no necessary, no sufficient, no condition that is both necessary and sufficient. If your promotion is lagging, that is academically you are not meeting up, no matter how good you perform, you cannot rise above certain things. I mean, if, for instance, in a university, no matter how good you are as an administrator, you can't rise above acting head of department if you are not a professor. Or maybe acting dean if they don't have people. Normally, you will not be acting VC again, unless there's a special case. So in other words, no matter your performance while holding those leadership positions may not be sufficient and may not be necessary and sufficient at the same time. That's why I say it's a combination of them that will constitute both necessary and sufficient conditions. None of them can take you up to the topmost in isolation to the neglect of the others.
All right. Thank you very much, Prof. Now, on that point, there is one of the characteristics of the Nigerian academic space, which in a different forum, we've been having conversations around that, and we're going to be having an event in a couple of days to talk about this. The so-called supervisor from hell. I don't know if you know. From hell. Yes. Now, what I mean is people who maybe because of the experience they had when they were doing their PhD. I mean, you've emphasized the relevance of a PhD to attaining a certain level of leadership. So there is this supervisor from hell who says, when I was doing my PhD, it took me 10 years. Why are you rushing to finish yours in 3 years? You know, there are those who leave the job of supervision and then just abandon their say PhD candidate. This usually happens in the context of the PhD. And so people drag in the process due to no fault of their own. How can we deal with this?
Well, that is I've been hearing that. I mean, but unfortunately, I've not really witnessed it. Both as a supervisee and as a supervisor. I mean, when I was a postgraduate student, well, I started, after NYSC, I started in 1980, October, and I finished in 1984, technically, although the Senate didn't approve it until 1985. So, but what I'm saying is that, well, I was exempted from MSc on ground of performance and so on. So that's why it's something like that. That is from first degree to PhD. So I wouldn't say I experienced frustration from my supervisor, although we quarreled because he was delaying me. He was busy as the then, so we quarreled. Eventually, we agreed to disagree. So now, when I became a supervisor myself, I don't think I've ever delayed a student. Before I retired last year alone, at least 6 people defended their PhD under my supervision before I left. So I wouldn't, but I had it my own experience, I always defend my colleagues that it is the supervisees that are not serious. And I continue to defend, even the vice chancellor, my vice chancellor then in 2002, no, in 2020, when he was appointed, the first time we were meeting, he said, what was the problem with you in economics? You always delay people, you always frustrate people. I then defended it. I said, no, it's the supervisors that don't have time. Then he retorted by saying, okay, what of those who went to Malaysia? I see not the same economics and so on. Why is it that they finish on time? I said, no, there's a difference. When you go to Malaysia, you are not doing any other work, and probably your family is not with you in most cases. So, but in this case, people who are bogged down by family issues, then they are not, at least in economics, they are working somewhere. So there is a lot of distraction. But when they go to Malaysia, they are able to face their work full. So, but having said that, I can say maybe in my area, I think I've not been noticing that, but people say it a lot in other disciplines. I mean, what you said is the narrative that I've been hearing. But as I said, I've not been directly involved to see a particular candidate that was being frustrated by the supervisor. But I hear it a lot. I hear it, let me confess, I hear it a lot. So to the extent that it is true, I think the problem is not with the supervisors as such. The problem is with the universities, particularly the postgraduate school. If they give a deadline that if you don't finish your PhD within 3 years, well, maybe they can grudgingly give you additional 1 year or something like that. And each year, if there's a delay, the students will have to, in a written form, we have to give the reason why the delay. And the supervisor will have to sign it that is true. He was not able to get the data on time, or the laboratory experiment, he was frustrated in the process or something, so that we know it is actually a genuine frustration. But if it's the supervisor that is responsible, when the students say, well, my supervisor couldn't have time, and that when I submitted, it takes 3 months before I collect my work back, and so if it's a fact, I mean, the supervisor next time he wouldn't do that again, and the PG school will threaten to reallocate that student to other supervisors. So the thing stops on the desk. The box stops on the desk of the PG school. They should be held responsible. And there's nothing we can do to supervisors individually, but it is the postgraduate school that is best placed to formulate and execute policy that will address such issues. So these are the few remarks I can make on that.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. I see that you put a lot of responsibility on the candidate themselves, which is actually correct. But the story of the supervisor from hell is one that is a fascinating one, and I can tell you, it also extends in a sense to career progression. I mean, I have had firsthand experience of well, I'm sure you know how it happens much better than myself in the Nigerian academic space. So for someone to be promoted to professor, their papers, their publication, and their portfolio, as it is called, has to be sent for external review. I think it used to be 2 or 3 external experts that will provide, review reports on the candidate's profile before the university can move it forward. Now, I have had first-hand experience of where somebody's portfolio was sent internationally to someone who is not in the discipline at all. I mean, there is also...
It's better than somebody they know is dead.
Yes, sometimes it happens like that. So when those kind of things, the striking part of it is that the victim may not even realize, because you are not supposed to know who your papers have been sent to.
Yes,
in the example that I was giving, Prof, the person who received the paper happened to know the candidate, but that was unknown to the university. So he reached out to the candidate and said, look, let me tell you. So Vegbo, they sent your papers to me, and there's nothing I can do about this. And then he made a suggestion for the gentleman to follow, and that was how he solved that problem. Now, I keep imagining the number of people who would get stuck simply because of this institutional misdemeanor, because they didn't have anybody to warn them, And I'm wondering if there's any way that academics can position themselves to at least minimize the probability that they would experience this kind of harsh experience, so to say.
Well, your observation is largely correct, and that's where maybe in the course of our discussion, we emphasize that you have to belong to the right camp to move unhindered. Victimization is the order of the day. We have to bear that in mind. In universities that are polarized, if you are not a professor yet, and you stick out your neck in university politics, and you are on the wrong side, assuming that when I wanted to be vice chancellor, you can fight against me, and so on and so. Eventually, I become vice chancellor. Well, in most cases, we human beings are not matured enough. We are not magnanimous enough. They want to victimize such people. If in ordinary deanship election, I know how victimization is the order of the day. That when I was canvassing for votes, this one didn't vote for me. I was able to know through my intelligence and so on like that. So I don't have a ready solution how to address somebody who is bent on victimizing, given that he has power. Anyway, he has risen along the ladder to vice chancellor and so on. One motive of wanting to be a leader is to wield power, and this time is using the power negatively. So I don't know how to now address such a situation, but I know it's very rife. It's rife, but the opposite too is still rife. If you don't have any paper, we can see, if you don't hardly have any paper, even newspaper publications, we can count it for you. We can send to external accessor and tell the external accessor. And in some cases, I've heard that the papers are not sent to external assessors, or when they are sent to external assessors and wrong, they add fast remarks, results are got, they dispense with it. Either they send to another one, or the vice chancellor can conjure it himself. After all, it's supposed to be confidential. Even the registrar is not supposed to know. So if you say yes, out of 3, we got 2, you are reading that to the council that we got 2, and the 2 are positive, the 3rd one is immaterial again. The council will not say, let us see. You just say, you read fictitious report out. So it works in both ways. Those are abuses that pervade the arrangement for advancing people along the career ladder in Nigerian universities. Maybe in due course, probably they can address this thing collectively, but I don't have a ready solution. But I know such things do happen. Victimization happens, and then rewarding of cronies and so on also happens. So I don't have a solution to that, but it's something that has to be looked into seriously. It does happen.
Thank you very much. So, one important lesson that I've taken away from our conversation today so far is one, there are problems. And which means if we want to really make changes, then we need to genuinely aspire for leadership, because this is where the platform to make significant changes resides. That's an important lesson for me.
I just want to point out that somebody who wants to advance along the career ladder should be aware of those things. That's why I was saying, be in the good book of those that are in a position to determine your promotion. As a professor of mine told one person defending PhD immediately after me, he said, yes, when we say you know, you know. When we say you don't know, you don't know. So the same thing applies to promotion. So no matter what you say, and so they will frustrate you to leave the university or the college of education or the polytechnic to another place. When they make sure that you don't get promotion. Eventually, you'll be frustrated to go to another one. So our people, our younger ones should be aware of that, not to belong to wrong camp. Immediately you see that the camp is getting the loser and so on, know how to probably be diplomatic about it.
So in fact, what you are talking about, Prof, is closely related to my last question. So you've said a lot of things, but I would ask it anyway in case there are other things you wanted to emphasize, and that's the role of mentorship and networks. You've been talking about camps, and I think this relates to networks. So what is the role of mentorship and networks in rising to leadership in academia? And how can one get into the right camps, to use your terminology?
Well, mentors, at the level of maybe doing once postgraduate programs, mentors can be supervisors and so on. They may not be supervisors or
No. Hello, Prof. We seem to have lost you.
But normally they are. So, but immediately after we are taught, it's about mentoring. So, hello, are you getting me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. So, what we have been talking about itself is about mentoring. There's a network problem.
No, please go ahead, sir.
Okay. It is about mentoring, and that's what mentors are supposed to do, to guide them. That I see that you are playing politics. You better.
No, it's somebody's microphone. Can I ask that we all keep muted, please? Thank you. Please go ahead, Prof.
So this is what a mentor should do to guide young early career scholars. That, okay, this thing, I see you are doing this thing. Please, you better don't, they are doing this election. I will advise you not to be openly supportive for one candidate, because any of them can win, and so on like that. Even when it comes to vice chancellorship and so on, when they are contesting, say, okay, please take care, and so on and so forth. So this is what mentors should do. Then mentors should guide you how to rise professionally now, technically. How can you publish papers, where to send papers to, how do you write better materials that will be easily accepted, and so on, after getting PhD, because what you wrote in PhD is not necessarily for publishing. At least not for academic publication, journal outlets, and so. So a mentor should also do that. It can be joint authorship initially. You can say, okay, let me bring it. I will put my name. It will, at least it will tell your manuals ways like that. We are mentors coming, not only in writing papers, but even what you do, even when you are giving the leadership position, if you are acting HOD, your mentor can say, yes, sorry, people are complaining about, some students are even writing petition, and so why don't you do this? Call them. And so this is what mentors should do, so that the performance of the mentees will be enhanced. So that is that. Then networking comes in. Because you are not nobody is an island. You need to collaborate, both in writing papers, in being aware of even job opportunities, because not all jobs are advertised openly, and so on like that. And then when I say networking is even goes beyond that. Even to network with people that can't, even outside academics. If you want, you are a professor, or maybe you are aspiring to be a professor, and you know people in the ministry, and so on. When you put in, maybe as a vice chancellor in future, and they say, oh, that person, oh, okay, he assisted me in doing this, we were collaborating or we are networking somewhere, maybe in a social club, in this one or whatever. These things count. Who you know counts. It's not just your work alone. Who you know also counts. So this is the role of networking that we should not overlook. Just like mentoring, both of them, they tend to go together. Or they tend to serve the same purpose.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Prof. It's been a very enlightening conversation. And at this point, I would like to open. No.
Then, sorry, before you open, I think probably I don't know, the issue of profile building activities that matters most. I think because that one too, once you shed some light on them.
Okay, yes, please go ahead. I was going to come back to that after a couple of questions because my assumption is that maybe we get one or two questions that will relate to that. But I think you can go ahead on that as well.
Okay. Now, the profile building activities that matter most on the path to academic leadership. Well, all of them will center on scholastic, academic, and professional attainment. And I have to elaborate. Well, the academic attainment to the highest level, because you cannot be a leader, at least definitely not the chief executive, unless you are at the top academically. I mean, in terms of promotion, if it is a college of education or polytechnic, you have to be a chief lecturer. So acting, so you have to be chief lecturer. Now the university, you have to be a professor. How do you get to be a professor or whatever? So this is where academic attainment comes in. So you have to be getting promotion from time to time. I think you ask how long it takes to get promotion. Well, that one depends on the institution and whether you are starting from assistant lecturership or from lecturership or senior lecturership. Now, following that, that is apart from academic attainment, there's academic research and publications, and that's very, very important. Now, on this academic, we first have that is, I have to get publications in good outlets and so on. And second, related to that is winning of research grants and so on. Now, these are core aspects of profile or resume or CV of an individual in an academic setting. And you have to achieve, make a record an achievement there. But I have to caution here that there are three categories of scholars. The first category are those, well, I don't know whether to call them scholars, but they just manage to get the peak of the academic career, not administrative, but academic career. If it's polytechnic or college of education, they manage to become a chief lecturer, maybe with PhD. So they have attained the peak. In other words, they must have had some publications commensurate with their level. Then maybe attracting research grant and so on. Then in the university where they manage to have those research publications and research, many of research grants, just to meet minimum. For such people, they don't need more. Or normally, they don't need more than that minimum to qualify them for the topmost leadership position. Once you take university as an example, once you are a professor is a professor. You don't need to be an outstanding scholar to maybe to be appointed professors. So that's why I say you have to meet that one. Just get some publications here and there, meet them. Them together. Eventually, maybe people will not have which category of professor you are. So that is one. The other ones, the second category is that those that have commendable scholastic attainment. So, and this one is a plus when you are aspiring to overall leadership of an institution, of an educational institution, is a plus. Because nowadays there's a tendency when they advertise for position of vice, I'm just using university as an example, position of university vice chancellor. They are in the habit of now saying yes, evidence of certain publications in Q1 journal or whatever, they will stipulate. They also say evidence of having won research grant of so. In other words, because of competition, advertisements now go to those level to that level, and so that's why I say it's a plus. Now, if you are aspiring to be a leader, you don't need to go beyond that level. I have to tell you, that is the middle level. You don't need to be the most outstanding scholar, that is scholar to the point of saturation in the process of aspiring to leadership, because even your attention will be divided. And I have to warn you, even it will compromise your leadership, interest in leadership position, because if they want to appoint me as a vice chancellor, if there's a conference in Asia, they will invite me. So this thing is, I'm paying too much price. How can I be there for so long? And so, I'm not interested in the administrative position. I'm just okay with my scholastic pursuit. So those are the very outstanding scholars, and they don't often have interest in leadership positions. And even if they have, there's a conflict with what they are doing. And I have a good example. Our first chancellor, when I was a student, Professor Aboyade, because it's an economist, so it's in my field. Of course, he grudgingly took up that position as vice chancellor, and they wanted to give him the second term. He said no. He was even lambasting people. Said, how can people make vice chancellorship a career? And he opted out. So, in other words, we have a class of people like that. Wole Soyinka never rose above HOD. He was my lecturer. He taught me GNS in those days. So this belong to a different category. They are not interested in administrative, leadership position as in the context of what we are discussing now. So some people don't, but if you are interested in leadership position, just stop at the middle level, not the low level, because there can be competition. They may say, yes, evidence of having won substantial research grants, evidence of having so publications in Q1 journal or something like that. And one will be disadvantaged. So if you are able to meet that up to that level, don't let that, further pursuit of academic excellence, don't let it distract your interest from your interest in leadership pursuit. That's what I just want to caution about that. And then another thing is that in your to build your profile, again, you need academic promotion, on time, because that's how you can build your profile. Your academic promotion must not be delayed, no matter how good you are a leader. I already mentioned that earlier. So those are the few things I want to comment on concerning the profiles, that is profile building activities.
Thank you very much, Prof. One important takeaway for me.
Hello,
we can hear you, Prof. We can hear you, sir. So one.
Okay, I think I've.
Yeah. Yes, sir. I was saying one important takeaway for me from your response is that one needs to be strategic about profile building, but at the same time, we can walk and chew gum. I think being an excellent, solid academic and having leadership positions, they are not necessarily mutually exclusive, but one needs to be strategic and strike the right balance. Thank you very much, Prof. So I would like to open the floor for questions. I can see that we are beginning to receive questions in the chat. There's at least one. I would like to start with that. I'm not sure if this is Dr. or Professor or Mr. Rotimi Olatunji. Do you want to unmute and ask Prof your question? And Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, if anyone else has a question, a comment, please feel free to raise your digital hand, and then we'll invite you to unmute. I'm not sure that Rotimi Olatunji is still here, but I can read the question, Prof, and then you can. Okay, Dr. Rotimi Olatunji is here. He just typed. Are you able to unmute and ask your question? If not, I'll just read it out. Okay, I think I'll read it, Prof. So the question is, well, he greets you. Greetings, beloved Prof. Thank you for the insightful exposition. In my opinion, unnecessary internal politics in our academia with emphasis on university setting leaves much to be desired. It is possible that good brains are not maximized as a result of unethical attitude of those occupying the topmost echelon of the academia. How can we move beyond these petty political shenanigans?
Well, hello?
Yes, we can
Can
hear
I
you.
Yes. It's a good observation, but the question that follows it is the answer is not easy. It requires concerted efforts by policymakers at all levels, even at the governmental level and so on. The issue of victimization and so on, even before appointments are made, the politics that are going into it, of them, the best thing that can happen. But we just have to, for now, we have to tolerate them and key in why the problem is being solved. But when it will be solved, we don't know. We cannot solve that one at the level of your scholars alone. It's a national issue. So I don't think we can address it at our level only.
Thank you, Prof. Yes, but I think one takeaway as well, which I'm sure that everyone today would have learned, is that in our own little corner, when we have these leadership positions, no matter how small it seems, exam coordinator, PG coordinator, admission officer, part advisor, HOD, what have you? Are we progressive? Are we supportive? Are we constructive in our dealings with others? So I think the more of us do the right things, the better overall in the long run. Thank you very much, Prof. I thought I saw a couple of hands earlier, but I can't see them anymore. Dr. Shakirat, Dr. Adeshola, I thought I saw your hand. Are you able to unmute? And then Professor Kolade, I know that you were going to make a point. Okay, Dr. Adeshola, please go ahead if you are able to speak.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me now?
We're happy to hear your voice, Dr. Adeshola. Finally,
I'm so sorry.
No problem. We understand.
Yeah, sometimes ago, I didn't want to interrupt the session. It has been resolved sometimes ago.
Oh, okay.
Because I was really enjoying how you are handling the session. That's why I decided to keep myself muted.
To you. But thank you anyway.
I really enjoyed it. The Prof has really done a wonderful job on this topic. Please, I would like Prof to please elaborate on the internal politics in tertiary institution, like a main mention of elections and so on. Like some people, they are privileged to be very close to the executives in the college, maybe universities and so on. But maybe during, like Prof said, maybe during election you realize somebody didn't vote for you, and that brings about grudges. And then we also have issues of people going about gossiping. Let me just put it like that. Gossiping to go and tell the executive, the head bad things, telling them about gossiping about you. They are so have said this about you, and human being what we are, we generally have to react. And so you realize that just falling out of favor or falling out of anything that was meant to be for your department, for your school, or for even personal things. Maybe you're looking for sabbatical, conference sponsorship, and so on. Maybe somebody has already said some bad things against you from to the executive, and then you have just fallen out of favor. Please, how can we just maneuver this? How can we come out of this part of things, this type of issues, sir?
Well, we can only minimize it. We can't come out of it. Minimize in the sense that we take very good care in pitching camps. Unless your conscience tells you that what this person is doing is good and another one what he's doing is bad, don't stick out neck in pitching camps, because you don't know who will have an upper hand between the two camps in the final analysis. So, and so that you don't become victims. But maybe that's how far you can go. But there are other categories of victimization that you cannot help. I mean, okay, let me take an example of a postgraduate student. I mean, that was when I was at IFE. He was doing his MSc, and I mean, whether a PhD also, and he wanted certain reagents, I mean, in science, from a lecturer. Do you have these reagents and so on? Well, the lecturer said, no, I don't have. Okay, sorry, okay, thank you, sir. So when he was going out, then the lecturer called him back. By the way, who is your supervisor? He said, my supervisor is Dr. X. Okay, I thought it's Dr. Y. I have it, take it. In other words, if it is Dr. Y that is supervising you, I wouldn't have given you. But when you now say it's Dr. X, I do have it, go and take it there. So in other words, it is transferred, not because it is, but the deemed supervisor offended him until he realized that it's actually deemed supervisor, it's not the actual supervisor. So the same thing goes for promotion. When they believe that you are a boy of a particular professor, the other professor will target you, not because you have done anything against him, but he wants to use you to whip or deal with his opponent. So it happens at the topmost level too, vice chancellor and so on like that. So it's a common one. You cannot help that. After all, you must belong, you must have friends. So if they think that your friend is their enemy, the law of transitivity is there. A friend of my enemy is therefore my enemy. So they will now hold it against you. So that one we cannot, but we should be aware of it. And that's why our CFE has to be strong, so that if we are an object of victimization, we'll be able to move across institutions. I always tell people that what can make you movable across the institution is your research publications. Your teaching effectiveness will not move you to another institution, because they will not ask whether your teaching was effective, where you are coming from or not. I mean, yeah, even at the interview stage, they will not ask you that question. And if they ask you, there's no evidence. But your research publication is the only thing that is feasible. So that can make you transfer from one institution to another in the event that you are caught up in the web of victimization. So that's why what I always advise people, that your research publications are bluff. If they are victimizing you, call it a bluff and go to another institution. So that's the few response I can give to that, or the little response I can give to that.
All right, thank you very much, Prof. We have another question in the chat. With the low level of salaries and allowances to lecturers, and you alluded to that at the beginning of the session today, what can be done to the poor academic remuneration in Nigeria to allay the brain drain syndrome?
Well, the low remunerations, let me now be frank, is not peculiar to the academics. The whole of, whether you let's say public service or even the salary earnings, I mean, organized private sector, it's even low generally when you convert it to maybe dollar or anything. But having said that, I said that of academics is outstanding for two reasons. First, they don't have other means of supplementing their meager earnings. I mean, other legitimate means, and even illegitimate means are not easy to come by, which is unethical in the first place anyway. I mean, for instance, you cannot, if you are selling marks, the university authority will know, and they will call you to question. I mean, it has not gone to that level. I mean, of course, you fail. I mean, there will be discipline. I'm not saying some are not doing it, some are doing it, but the scope is limited. I can remember, I mean, there's a rumor that in polytechnics, they know how they go about sorting and so on, maybe sell handouts and so on, right? Maybe, but it's still limited unless somebody is actually totally fraudulent, that now makes it a means of livelihood. So that's why, but in civil service, before I can deal with your file, I mean, I can just say, okay, so maybe a certain contract before I can approve it, a Minister of Works and so on. So they have other means, illegitimate means, for those that are inclined to it. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but we know not all of us are honest. So that's why they cover up. That is one. Two, that's why the that of academics is different. Two is that the market for our skills is global, it's international. You cannot apply to maybe another African country, universities in other African countries, or in Europe and so on, say you want to be registrar, and say, don't we have our own who can be registrar? Or the civil service, I want to apply as permanent secretary, or there as a director in the ministry in UK or something. They say, are we saying that we need people? But in the university, the market is global, and that is what authorities should bear in mind. I think the one that is almost as global as it is maybe medical profession. I mean, well, you can, and that one is because of, it's peculiar, but always offer the centuries. The market for academics is global, and that the authorities should bear that in mind. And that is why the Japa syndrome. If the market is not global, we still manage with the PTNs we are earning, and maybe we'll be riding Okada to the school. But thank God, the market is global. Before it gets to that level, most people who have left, most academics who have left the country. So those are the two characteristics that make our home outstanding. But generally, the wage level in the country is low. And that's why the recent report by World Bank also say over 50% of Nigerians live below the poverty line, because they emphasize because the wage level is low. Not only those that are in informal sector, but even those in organized private sector too. This is very low. How many people are earning up to 1 million per month? And what is 1 million per month? When you convert that, so that's the reason. That's the characteristic of academics. The wage level is generally low, and we are feeling the academic sector is feeling the pinch more, because we don't have, to those that are inclined, we don't have illegal means of supplementing our income. Two, our market is international. The market for our skill It's international. It's global. So that's the few comments I have to make on that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Prof. We're literally out of time now, so we won't be able to take any further questions. But I would like to thank you so much, Prof, despite the odds, for making the time to join us today. And I'm happy to see that we managed to have a very robust and insightful conversation, despite the technical issues that that we're all familiar with, the usual network challenges that we had both at the beginning and intermittently throughout the session. I'd like to invite Professor Konlade to help in closing this session and giving some final words, as well as to appreciate Professor Dedokun for his time today. Prof, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Egbetokun, for this series. It has become more or less a flagship series with the Oyo Scholars Congress, all thanks to your sustained effort. I cannot thank you enough, Dr. Egbetokun. And I want to also express, collective thanks and appreciation to Professor Dedokun for a very insightful and thought-provoking discussion this evening. I know that some of this conversation cannot be exhausted in one session, but I think you've done justice to them. Some of these we have to continue to explore and discuss, and there have been comments in the chat as well about how can we make the practice better in the higher education sector. I think that is sacrosanct. Anywhere in the world, I think it's also about the system that enables best practices or that hinder best practices. I think that is also key. So the tendency, for example, of anybody in position of power, we talk about politics, to abuse their powers is everywhere in the world. I think what is making it less feasible or less of a problem in other parts, in some parts more than others, is because of the system that are in place, the mechanism that are in place, that enables everybody to, for example, to report or to identify where there are, cases of abuse of power and so on. But I think the practical insights are very, very helpful in terms of how can early career, mid-career researchers in particular navigate that. But I think there's also a challenge for senior career researchers or aspiring senior leaders among us about, the utility of power. That when we get to position of authority and responsibility, it's also about how do we use that power to enable others, because nobody is nobody becomes nobody is appointed as vice chancellors for life, or a visitor or chancellor for life. I think at the end of the day, when we senior leaders, when they leave the position, it is the impact they make that will outlive them. It is the stories of how they've been able to enable and support others. And in that regard, I just want to thank Professor Odetokun again for the work he did in Emmanuel Alayande College, now University of Education. And a lot of people have been talking about your work behind your back, and they have very positive feedback. Some of them are on this call. So, and I think that is really what leadership should be about, because none of us will be there forever. I think it's about what people say about you once you are gone. And I encourage all of us, whether you are early career, whether you are mid-career, or whatever stage you are, that the position of authority and power that you have, use it to empower, to enable, to promote and support others, because that will outlive. It will outlive your time in the role. I think the final comment I also want to make, which I posted in the chat earlier, is that we're a community. And I think Prof is right in saying that if nobody blows your trumpet, if you don't blow your own trumpet, nobody will. I think that is true. But as a community, there's also another dimension to that, which is that all of us, we should take all the responsibility to blow the trumpet for our kind, for our kinsmen, for our people, for our scholars who are doing great things. If I hear of anything Dr. Adeshola Shakirat has done, for example, I shouldn't wait for her to blow her trumpet. I should bring out the trumpet. I should bring out the vuvuzelas, to tell the world of how great she is and great things that she has done and achieved. And I think that's a challenge I want to throw to every one of us on this call. That, when we see or when you come across any news or piece of information about what our scholars, kinsmen have achieved, it doesn't have to be Nobel Prize. Nobel Prize are rare to come by. But there are also other big achievements. Let us take that on as part of our commitment as a community, that we will cheer, one another on and give visibility. So I think that's just the few things I have to say. So thank you once again, Dr. Egbetokun. Thank you, and thank you, Professor Odedokun, for very insightful and very interesting presentation and discussion today. And over to you, Dr. Egbetokun.
Thank you also.
You are muted.
Yeah, so I was just going to say thank you, Professor Odedokun, for your time. Thank you, Professor Konade, for joining. And thank you, distinguished ladies and gentlemen who have been able to make time today. Dr. Adeshola, I really, really appreciate your commitment, your passion, and your tenacity, staying through this despite the technological challenges. Because we live streamed this, at a point there was a break in the live stream, so there will be 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. You're welcome, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
So there are 2
Okay,
links
good night.
in the
Good
WhatsApp
night.
for everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
You too, sir. Yes, sir.
Bye.